What makes a clean fragrance? Are fragrances actually clean? So, Alan, if you're going for all natural, then why don't you just use essential oils? Hello everyone, if you're new here, I'm Alan with Earthglow, and this channel is all about sharing the joy of candle making. Today I'm going to be talking about my process for vetting a fragrance. In other words, what I'm looking for in a fragrance that I'm going to use in my products. So if you're interested, then just keep on watching. So, what makes a clean fragrance? In my opinion, I'm looking first and foremost for fragrances that do not contain phthalates. Phthalates are basically a category of salts or esters of phthalic acid. And they are going to be found in a lot of commercial candles, and they're linked to a lot of things that are not very good for our bodies, such as disruption of hormone activity, breast, liver, and other forms of cancer, obesity, and reproductive malformation. And there's probably a lot of other things that I'm missing on this list too. But it's also important to note that phthalates are a whole category of chemicals, and a lot of the ones that are found in candles are generally not the most dangerous types. However, a lot of folks today are just choosing to omit them in their candle lines entirely just to avoid any potential dangers, and I think that that's a great idea that I emulate as well in my own line. I'm also looking for fragrances that do not contain carcinogens, and that is going to include everything on Proposition 65. Because if a chemical is known or suspected to the state of California to cause cancer, it's just not a chemical that I want in my product line at all. Third, I'm also looking for fragrances that do not contain any mutagens. These are basically going to be agents, they could be physical or chemical, that alter the DNA of a cell. Once again, they are going to be linked to a host of diseases, including cancer. And then there's toxins. So there's gonna be acute toxins, organ toxins, and reproductive toxins. So those are the three main categories that I want to avoid in all of my oils. Acute toxins are going to be highly dangerous chemicals that are going to cause adverse effects from a single exposure or a series of exposures, usually within 24 hours or a very short time. And then there's reproductive toxins. So these are gonna be chemicals that negatively interfere with the reproductive system, and sometimes we just call them reprotoxic. Some examples of these would be teratogens, thalidomide, endocrine disruptors, and some phthalates. The last category of toxins is going to be organ toxins, and these are going to be toxins that negatively affect different organs or organ systems within the body. So they could be respiratory toxins, immunotoxins, cardiovascular toxins, they could be dermal toxins, etc. Those are the three main categories of toxins, and as scary as all this sounds, most of these ingredients are really common to find in candles and other skincare products and things that we use on a regular basis in everyday life. But anyways, those are the three main categories of toxins that I want to avoid in all my oils. So in my opinion, if I find a fragrance that meets all of this criteria, then I consider that a clean fragrance. Now, how the heck do I figure out if a fragrance meets all of these criteria? Well, first and foremost, I become best friends with the SDS, or Safety Data Sheet, sometimes termed MSDS. So before I bring a new fragrance or a product into my line, this is the very first thing that I'm going to be looking at. Reputable suppliers will usually post this right on their websites, but if not, they will make it available to you upon request. So you can usually just call them or send them an email if it's not directly on their website. And I do believe that suppliers are legally obligated to make this available to us. Yeah, and they'll usually post it right on the product listing page as an attachment labeled SDS or MSDS, or Safety Data Sheet, and you just click on that and you will be able to open and view the document. But each fragrance is kind of its own unique animal, and so you're going to want to get very familiar with consulting the Safety Data Sheet for every single fragrance that you bring into your product line. Because it's going to, well, if it's properly filled out, I should say, it's going to alert you of any possible dangerous chemicals that you will find in that particular oil. Now, when you first start looking at these sheets, you are going going to be pretty intimidated. There's a lot of information on there, and if you are not accustomed to lab classes in the chemistry department, then you're probably going to be intimidated. So what's the easiest way to decipher all the information on the safety data sheet? Well, usually at the top of the sheet, they will have what you call warning pictograms. These are going to be little pictures of, say for example, an exclamation point, or a heart exploding inside of someone's chest, or worse yet, a skull and crossbones. So let's talk about the worst one first, the skull and crossbones. Well, that's basically shorthand for a fragrance that contains acute toxins. And again, these are going to be highly dangerous chemicals that are going to cause adverse effects from a single exposure or a series of exposures, usually within 24 hours or a very short time. You want to avoid them at all costs. Next, let's talk about the person with the very unappealing heart exploding out of the chest. This one basically tells you that the fragrance contains toxins that are either going to be reproductive toxins or organ toxins, and sometimes mutagens. Now, there's a lot of other pictograms that we could get into that you'll find on the safety data sheets, but these are the main two that I am looking to avoid. And I also recommend doing a Control F search. So just holding down the control button and pressing the F button on your computer. And what that'll do is open up a little text box where you will be able to type in a word. And I recommend just typing in carcinogen or Prop 65, and that will usually pull up right on there any chemicals that are going to be carcinogenic, as well as chemicals that are going to be on Prop 65. And there's going to be a lot of overlap between all these categories, so something that is an organ toxin may also be on Prop 65, may also be an acute toxin, etc. But if you do a Control F search, you'll usually be able to see right away if a fragrance contains any of that. Now, some companies make it really easy for us. If you feel like you don't have time to actually analyze the safety data sheet at this level, then I would recommend just buying from companies like Candle Science that already build all of this information right into their products, the ones that are marketed as clean scents. And they're going to make all of that really easy for you and much less intimidating if you're just starting out and you're wanting to have clean oils in your line. Because like I said, any scent that has that Clean Scents logo is going to meet all of these criteria. And it's not just Candle Science that has clean oils. There's lots of other companies as well that make oils that are clean. You just are going to have to do a little bit more digging if you're looking to be as stringent as I personally do with what I allow in my candle line in terms of fragrances. And the last question I know you're all wondering is, Alan, if you're going for all natural, then why don't you just use essential oils? Well, this certainly is an option. There are people who make whole, very successful companies on just essential oils, on using just essential oils in their products. Personally, this is not my choice for making candles. There's a lot of fragrance notes that you simply cannot get in essential oils, like for example, chocolate or apple or graham cracker, etc. They simply do not exist in essential oil. However, most all fragrance oils on the market that are high quality are going to contain essential oils in them. There's companies like Makesy and Candle Science that will even list the essential oils that they put into their fragrances, into each of their individual fragrances. You can see this like in the description area or near the description of the fragrance. And they will list the essential oils that are in the fragrance so that you're able to use this for your own knowledge and branding, etc. And you certainly are welcome to just use essential oils in your products. There's even companies like Nature's Garden and Candle Science now, I believe too, that have a whole line of essential oils. I know Candle Science does, that are formulated specifically to work well in candles. Or I should say that they are going to be more compatible with candle applications. And that's really nice because a lot of the time, if you're using essential oils, they are not going to be formulated for candles, and they can be really difficult to use and get a good scent throw as well as a good burn profile. A lot of people don't know this, but many essential oils do contain chemicals on Proposition 65, which basically means that they contain aromatic chemicals that are suspected to be carcinogenic. And they also can contain some of the other toxins that we talked about earlier. Now, I'm not talking all of them, but just because something is natural does not mean that it is safe to use in your products. And essential oils are going to be much more difficult to find safety data sheets for and to really evaluate the safety of in your products, like candles, where you're generally going to be using a higher amount, like 10% or somewhere in that ballpark. Skincare gets even more intricate and complex because of certain essential oils containing phototoxins, which are basically going to be things like bergamot. There's some components in bergamot, for example, in different citruses that when you go out in the sunlight can actually cause blistering and rashes and basically photo, which means light, toxicity. If you all would like in the future, I'm happy to talk more about my process for vetting essential oils and just how I go about that in a lot of my products, because my body butters, for example, do contain primarily essential oils for the fragrance, and they do have just a little bit of fragrance oil, but most of the aromatic components in my body butters are going to be comprised of essential oils. But anyways, that is going to be all for today, and I hope that you all enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments box, and I will do my very best to respond to all of them. This can actually be a really fun topic and an interesting one to explore. I think for centuries, the fragrance industry has lacked transparency, and I think in the last 5 to 10 years especially, that it has become really important to a lot of companies, particularly small businesses, to have clean fragrances in their product line. And so we've become much more stringent on our standards. And because of that, I think that a lot of fragrance companies are coming out with much cleaner and safer fragrances for us to use in our products, which is, well, I think really exciting. But anyways, I do hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'm sending everyone peace, love, and light. And I'm wishing all of you happy candle making.